The wind howled low and mournful through the streets of Marlow Bay, a seaside town long past its prime. The buildings, chipped and weather-beaten, stood like old soldiers bearing silent witness to secrets buried beneath the cobblestones. It was in this town, tucked away on England's eastern coast, that Detective Jonathan Merrick found himself on a rain-slicked autumn evening, summoned by a letter inked in a trembling hand. Merrick had not taken a case in almost a year. After the infamous Grafton Hill murders, he had vanished from London's crime scene, disappearing into the shadows that had claimed his former partner. The city whispered about him, some saying he'd gone mad, others that he'd taken to drink. But the truth was simpler: Merrick had grown weary of the darkness he chased. The letter arrived on a Monday, signed by Eleanor Whitcomb, heiress to the Whitcomb estate, once the heart of Marlow Bay's wealth. The message was brief but heavy with dread. "Detective Merrick, I fear someone is watching me. And I believe they mean to kill me. Please, come to Whitcomb House before it's too late." Whitcomb House was an ancient stone manor perched on the cliffs, half swallowed by ivy and mist. It groaned with the weight of generations, one of those places where every creak of the floorboards seemed to echo with the past. Eleanor greeted him with a strange mixture of relief and restraint, her eyes hollow but sharp. "I don't expect you to believe me," she said as she led him through the halls. "No one else does. They think I'm mad." "Madness doesn't write letters," Merrick replied. "Tell me what's been happening." She spoke of voices in the night, shadows passing beneath doors, the lingering scent of pipe smoke that no longer existed in the house. Her brother, Thomas, had died 6 months prior, found in the garden, neck broken, eyes wide open as though he'd seen something unearthly. It had been ruled an accident. Eleanor disagreed. "They said he fell." But Thomas was careful, even paranoid. "He never went near the edge. He was scared of something he wouldn't tell me about." Merrick walked the estate the next morning. Fog clung to the hedges, and the sea whispered ominously below the cliffs. The servants, all tight-lipped and stiff, had little to offer. Yet it was the butler, Graves, who caught his eye, a man with coal-black eyes and a voice like dry leaves. "Miss Eleanor is troubled," Graves said. "She's seen too much death. It clouds the mind." Merrick didn't respond. His instincts, long dulled but not dead, stirred. Something about the house felt wrong, not haunted, but watched, as though the walls themselves were listening. He spent that evening in the study, examining Thomas's journal Eleanor had found in the attic. The entries were increasingly erratic. At first, mundane notes about estate repairs, garden work, and financial matters. Then came the paranoia. "The mirror moved again last night. I'm certain of it. And the draft, it's coming from behind the fireplace." Merrick traced the source of the draft and found a hidden panel behind the fireplace. Inside was a narrow passage, damp and reeking of mold, winding down into the earth. At the bottom, he found a small stone chamber with a rusted cot, a lantern, and a collection of journals. Each one belonged to a different member of the Whitcomb family, dating back centuries. Each journal told of the same thing: a presence, a watcher, someone who lived within the walls. Some called it the Silent Man. Others said it was madness. But always, the stories ended the same: death or disappearance. When Merrick returned to the main house, he found Eleanor standing on the balcony, trembling. "He was here," she whispered. "I saw him in the mirror." That night, Merrick locked the study and watched. Hours passed. At exactly 3 a.m, the mirror shimmered, not physically, but perceptibly. A trick of the light, or a shift in the fog, he couldn't tell. But then a figure stepped into view, a man, gaunt and hollow-eyed, dressed in clothes a century old. He did not move, only watched. And then he was gone. Merrick pursued the legend the next day, delving into town archives. What he discovered chilled him. In 1834, a man named Elias Whitcomb, brother to the then master of the house, had been locked away after a scandal involving a young maid who vanished. The story was hushed up, and Elias was officially declared dead 2 years later. But there was no grave. He returned to the hidden chamber and searched more thoroughly. Behind the cot was a second passage, this one tighter, barely walkable. It led upward, behind the walls, to a small room overlooking Eleanor's bedroom, complete with a peephole. Inside the room was a chair, worn to splinters, and a pipe tray, long unused. But someone had been there recently. Dust disturbed. A smear of oil. And a set of muddy footprints leading away. Merrick rushed to Eleanor's room, but she was gone. Her bed unmade, a window open. On the mirror, written in condensation, "She belongs to me." The search began immediately. The cliffs were scoured, the town alerted. But Merrick suspected the house had not yet given her up. It was Graves who gave him the clue. The butler had been with the family for over 40 years. In questioning him again, Merrick saw his composure waver. "She asked too many questions," Graves said. "She should have left it alone." "You knew," Merrick said. "You knew about the chamber." "About Elias." Graves said nothing. But his hand twitched, toward the mantel, where Merrick spotted the tip of a revolver tucked behind a candlestick. He moved fast. In seconds, the gun was out of Graves' reach, and the butler lay cuffed on the floor. "I didn't hurt her," he said. "But he might." It was enough. Merrick scoured the house again, this time with a constable and 3 lanterns. Behind the wine cellar, another door, bricked up and sealed. They broke it open. Inside was a chapel long forgotten, filled with mildew and rotting pews. At the altar, a figure, tall, pale, sunken, stood silently. In his arms, unconscious but alive, was Eleanor. The man dropped her as they entered. He turned and let out a shriek not of rage, but despair, as though the world had ended centuries ago and he alone had not noticed. They tried to capture him, but he fled, into the cliff tunnels behind the chapel. They searched for hours, but he was never found. Eleanor recovered in a London hospital. Graves was arrested, and the house was sealed by order of the Crown. Merrick, once again a name in the papers, vanished after the case was closed. Some say the man in the chapel was Elias himself, having lived decades in the walls. Others say he was something older, something the Whitcombs awoke and could never put to rest. Merrick never said. But years later, on a foggy night in Marlow Bay, a letter was found on the doorstep of a seaside inn. The house still breathes. The fog still watches. And something walks the cliffs. It was unsigned.